as you go about dating in the Philippines, not only will you have plenty of dates to go on, but there's a statistic there that I've seen, and it is this. Roughly 85% of the Filipinas that you start dating, 85% of those will not make it beyond 3 months. And many of them will not even make it past the first 4 weeks. There is a huge fallout. Now, a viewer asked me just yesterday online, what are the most common reasons for this high fallout? So that's what we're going to take a look at today. Now, keep in mind, your ratio may vary depending on the type of women that you decide to ask out and date. For some guys, the fallout before 3 months can be as high as 90, 95%. I know with this one guy, he dated for over 6 years in Dumaguete, and he was consistently getting what you would call a gold digger type. But there's a reason for that. Maybe I'll talk about that some other time. Other guys are very selective about the women they date, and they're in a mode of looking for relationship material, and so their ratio might be a little better. But on the average, 85% won't make it to 3 months. There are 4 major reasons, and I'll give them to you sort of in the order of severity, but not necessarily in the order of how frequently they happen. The first one that usually ends up being a deal killer for a new relationship or a new dating partner is cheating. Now, they might still be hooking up with their Filipino boyfriend they didn't tell you about. They might have an expat that is sending them money who won't be back for another 6 months. So they figure they'll have some fun with you, come up with some excuse if you're still around when the other guy comes back to town, and they're hoping to just kind of play both sides of the fence. But usually within 3 months, you start getting suspicious, and of course, that's it. You're done. Not going to put up with cheating. The second most severe, at least by my standards, is lying. You meet a Filipina, she tells you she's single, she's available, she doesn't have any kids. You start dating her, and then little by little, you start picking up on clues that, oh, wait a minute. How come these kids, when we went to your parents' house, are calling you mom? And sometimes the Filipina will actually withhold this information, waits until you're emotionally invested, convincing you that she's a single woman with no kids. And then once she sees that you really care about her and you really want to build a life with her, then she springs it on you and says, oh, well, you know, I do have just 2 kids. They live in the province with my mother, and I came to the city to get a job, and I hope you're not mad. They'll come forth with the truth, but only at the most opportune moment, hoping that you will just digest it and accept the situation. Other ones will hide the fact that they're married. Now, it's not that they're married and living with their husband. It's that they got married maybe 3 years ago. The husband took off, but she is still paper married to that man and will remain married to him because there is no divorce option in the Philippines. And unless somebody comes along like you and is willing to spend a few $1,000 to get an attorney and go through the court process for an annulment, until that happens, she is still a married woman. And again, many guys I have talked to have gotten this revelation later once she felt that he was emotionally hooked into the relationship. There was even one Filipina that, long story short, her and I never met, but we kept talking every day on chat. And when she saw that I was not interested, she actually asked me if I knew any foreigners that were looking for a Filipina. However, she also had told me she wanted one boyfriend who would pay for an annulment from her husband, but that's all she wanted from that boyfriend. Once he paid for that, on the assumption that they were going to get married, because why else would he do it, she flat out told me once some expat pays for her annulment, then she wants to find a different expat for a husband. So lying by omission or just outright lying is the second reason why so many new relationships fall to the wayside within 3 months. The third reason is you find very quickly, and this doesn't take long, you get together, everything is great, maybe you don't mind spending a bit of money, but it turns out that she is simply materialistic. She is more excited about the things you can buy her and the places you can take her than she is in you personally. You are just the conduit to bring the goodness into her life. Materialistic women usually show their hand pretty quickly, like within a week or even faster. I remember one time I went on a date at the suggestion of another Filipina friend of mine. She had just recently made friends with this Filipina and said, "Oh, she's very pretty. Maybe you'd be interested in her." So on that basis, I said, okay. So I chatted with her and she sent me a picture off of her Facebook, and she was, pretty. I mean, she was about between an 8 and a 9. She was very pretty. And after about 2 days of chatting, since we both lived in the same city, I said, well, hey, there's this Italian restaurant. Why don't we meet there and we can have a nice conversation? Now, I've since then learned, don't go for the nice restaurant on the first date. Much better to do a coffee date. You can bail out on a coffee date pretty easy. Usually you pay for your coffee up front, you sit down. If things get weird, whatever, you just find a polite or curt way to stand up, say, well, this isn't working out, or I gotta go, whatever, and you can just walk out the door. But when you're doing a restaurant date, you're kind of stuck there until the bill comes. So a little piece of advice, do a coffee date on your first date, and if things go good and you want to see her again, well, then do the dinner date. So I meet with this woman, but literally 10 minutes before she's supposed to be there, she sends me a text and says, oh, is it okay if I bring my friend along? Now, I've got no problem with them bringing a friend along on a first date if that was requested up front. But when they do it at the very last minute, as far as I'm concerned, that's an ambush. I really don't dig that at all. So this was quite a few years ago, and at the time, I was like, okay, yeah, fine, whatever. Yeah, your friend can come. Now, as it just turned out, as I'm looking across the table, I've got the one Filipina that was recommended to me by my Filipina friend, and she's very attractive, nice makeup, well-dressed. Again, she's about an 8. And then I'm looking at her friend, who is more like a 6 or a 7, but she has that sweet girl next door look. And she seemed like a very nice person, like a very gentle, calm demeanor. And I was immediately thinking, well, I wish I would have met her instead. But I ran with what I had, and as the menus start showing up at the table, the Filipina that I had been set up with is telling me, oh, by the way, it's my friend's birthday. And right away, she starts ordering literally the most expensive items on the menu. Now, compared to American prices, it really wasn't that much. But it was the thought that she was there on that date to get as much as she could. Not just by ordering the most expensive items, but after we were all done eating, of course, they ordered dessert. I saw that she had called over the waiter and spoken to him in Visayan. But of course, I didn't know what they were saying. So as we're getting ready to leave, the waiter comes by with a large brown bag with 2 more orders to go, which obviously she did not ask me if that was okay or not. Now, during the dinner and conversation, she had found out from my Filipina friend that I had plans in 2 weeks to go to Boracay for a week. But I never brought that up during the dinner date. And so during the dinner date, she kept throwing out these little hints saying, have you ever been to Boracay? And at the time I said no, but I didn't say I was about to go. And then she threw it out there again. Oh, I've never been to Boracay. I would really like to go to Boracay. Gee, I'll bet it's really nice in Boracay. And I just let it lay there. I was not going to take the bait and say, hey, why don't you come with me to Boracay? because by this time, I already knew this was a materialistic woman. So even on a first date, you can, if you're paying attention, realize she's just in it for what she's gonna get. She really doesn't care about you. And that is the third reason why so many new dating relationships just don't even make it to the first 3 months, let alone the first 4 weeks. The fourth reason why many of these go down in flames, you can just sort of categorize these under basic incompatibilities. It might be that you chatted with them, even video chatted with them, and it's like, oh, you're getting along and you're joking and whatever. And then you approach them, you meet them at the table in person, and you can tell before you even sit down, you're not attracted to them. They don't really look like the picture they had on their dating profile. Or maybe that's not the issue. You sit down, you get to talking with them, and then we all have our own preferences of the type of woman that we want in our life. Some guys want a woman that is very outgoing and gregarious and laughs out loud and just full of that bubbly energy. Other guys would rather have someone that's a bit quieter, a little bit of a wallflower, maybe even a little bit shy and demure. But if you want one and you end up with the other, you may just find yourself thinking, this is not going to work. I remember I was with this one Filipina, and she was more the type that was very quiet, very shy. And I would ask her questions, open questions, like, how did your work go today? Good. And I stuck it out. I really liked her. She was very, very pretty, very tiny, very cute. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to try to help her open up. I'm sure there's got to be a way to make her feel comfortable to where we can just start having a more fluid conversation. Well, in 5 weeks, that never happened. We'd go through 3 days that she would be with me. She might say 9 sentences in the 3 days. And it wasn't that she was mad or anything. It's just that and she could speak very good English when she spoke. But I remember one time as we're awkwardly going through a meal and it's just so quiet, I've already kind of run out of questions or comments or anything to talk about. And so after about 15 minutes of just awkward silence, I told her, you know what? You talk too much. And I did get a laugh out of her, but I still could not get her to open up. So basic incompatibilities. It could be that there is no lying and she is honest with you, and you ask her, so you have any kids? And she says, yeah, I've got 3 kids. And you're already thinking, no, I really don't want to hook up with a single mom who has 3 kids. So it's just not going to go to a second date. Now, these 4 things are not all inclusive. There are other reasons why everything just goes south before the first 30 days are up. So willing to hear your reasons for why you have just called it quits after a couple dates because you realized this just isn't going to work, or you ran into some kind of deal breaker and that was the end of that.